Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can connect your material data table directly to a MySQL database using PHP or any other server-side scripting language. So as I mentioned earlier, I intend to design my code in such a way that this can work with almost any other database. So in this video, I'll be connecting to the MySQL database and I'll be using PHP as my server-side language. So let's get started. So just to recap, and I will include a link to my previous video. So in this video, so as you can see in this app, what we are doing, we have created a mock data. So, and my backend service is getting the data from this mock data and dumping it on this material data table. So this is my mock data looks like. And again, the data coming from MySQL server is exactly the same. Not exactly the same, sorry, but the column names are same. Like it has a MySQL table as a unique ID, student name, session ID, roll number, father's name, class, and percent. And in a minute, I'll show you the MySQL side of it. But for now, let me just pretend that this MySQL server exists and there's some PHP backend API is already written, and all we need to do is fetch the data from this service. And in the second part of this video, I will show you how to write that PHP code. So let's get started. So first thing I want to you to do, like look at this. So right now it's fetching the data from the mock data component. So I want to comment this out, and then I'm going to comment this mock data. Okay. Then this is my backend URL. So whenever your PHP API is ready, this is my PHP link where I'll be accessing my PHP API. And again, as I said, I'll come back to that PHP portion in later part of the video. But for now, let's say this API is working and it is giving you the data. So just to show you, I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to head out to my browser. Let's see if this is the data is returning, and it's almost the same format as the data what we are using in mock data. Okay, the only thing is my mock data has 6 different rows and the data I am getting, it has only 1 row. That's the only difference, but otherwise the data looks same. So this is my backend URL. Okay, next thing I want to do here, I'm going to comment out this hard-coded student's value. One next thing I need is like HTTP client, because I need to connect to this this PHP server using an HTTP client. So I'm going to bring the HTTP client and HTTP headers, and then next thing is I'm going to include this as a service in my constructor. Okay, and in my get data, I want to say this underscore HTTP dot get. And then I'm just going to pass this URL. So at this point, if I just do a semicolon, it's going to work. Okay, let me just quickly show you some more things. Okay, so but again, right now this HTTP works and it will get the backend URL. It will dump the data. But in a real world, it's not a perfect scenario. It's not a perfect code. Okay, just to show you, because sometimes what happens, your HTTP service is down, or for some reason you are not able to fetch the data, and you will never know that there's some problem with your code. So it's always a good idea to include the handle error and a log function. Okay, again, it's optional, but I highly recommend you doing that. So at this point, I'm just put that error into the console log, and the same thing, I'll put the log into that into console log. Okay, so next thing I want to do, I want to bring some couple of the RX operators. This is a very handy operator. I will have another series on how to work on the RX operators, but for now let's just go with it. I'm going to include 3 operators: catch, error, map, and tap. And on this HTTP get, I will pipe the results and I will tap it, and then I will include a function for catch error. So I think that's pretty much it. So that's pretty much all I need to do for the backend service. So I'm pretty sure if I go back to my app, it might be complaining about something, that the data is not right, something like it. But let's see. Okay, while it's compiling. Okay, sorry, it's still processing. Okay, while we are waiting, the next step is, I know that this data is displayed using this component metadata table.component.ts, and as you can see, originally I was just getting the data from my .get data, and it's not going to work anymore. So while we are waiting, I think see, that's why it was taking time, because it was complaining that this my table data dot component is broken, and because you see, we commented out the earlier function which was getting the hard coded value from mock data, and now it's getting from HTTP service. So let's just fix it. And if I bet if I go here, like it's not going to show up. So let's just quickly fix it. I'm going to comment this line. Next thing is I'm going to return, and I'm going to go to my backend service, and then I'm going to use this function get data. I'm going to subscribe to it. I'll take the results, pass it on to the data source, and as I said, my data looks like, let me show you. See the data, and this is the first row I want to get, so I'll just say data. Okay. Next thing is, it's not going to work, I know, because earlier my data source was mat table data source. It was just any, it was defined as a variable, but this time I just want to instantiate it, like within new. So I think now it looks good. That's pretty much it. Now if I save it, let's go back. Okay, let's hope this error goes away. Yeah, it's compiled. So basically, these are all the only few changes to these two files: changes to your backend service and changes to this mattable.ts file to subscribe to the new function. And as you can see, it came back with the data, and this is the data I have in my MySQL server. So see, this code works. The same code, with very minimal changes. All you have to do, make some changes to the back data service, and here very small changes. You have to new your data source, otherwise there is no other change, and it's pulling the data from your PHP backend API. So basically that's all it takes. Now the second part, it didn't happen just because of a magic. So I want to also cover the second part, how to write a PHP API and fetch the data from the MySQL server. Okay guys, so in this part I'm going to connect my HTTP to PHP server, and I'm going to show you how to work on your PHP, like how to design PHP and connect to the MySQL server database. So as you can see, this is I assume you already have a MySQL server running somewhere, and this has one simple table with these columns. That's all you need. It's very simple. Next thing is, I'm going to create, as you can see, I created a new folder, PHP API, and I created two files inside this, connection.php and php api.php. So these are blank files, so let's write some code here. First thing I want to do here is I want to define couple of the variables, say server, database, username, password, and this is where is your MySQL server is hosted. So all you need the path to your MySQL server and your database user ID and password, and basically you can. That's how you are going to connect. I'm going to connect to the SQL server, okay, and it's just going to initiate. Sorry, this is not consistent. So it's a BD, okay. So all it's going to do is making a connection to this MySQL server, and it's returning an object like BD, which has the database connection. So basically that's all this file does. Second file is here is another PHP file, and first thing I'm going to do this header access control allow origin equals to star. Let me tell you one thing, guys. This is a very bad idea, horrible idea. You do not want everybody to come to your PHP server, and in this way they can access your PHP code. But in this particular instance, the app I'm developing, this tab is going to be is a read only. All it is doing is reading the data from the MySQL database. I'm not even allowing them to write anything. This will be written, this SQL server or MySQL server database is populating through another API. That's a totally different story. But for my mobile app, all I'm doing, I want to show a list of uh, students with their information, and this is a public API. So this is a very fair thing to do it right now in this case. Okay. Next thing is I'm going to include that connection.php. Basically, this is where I define all my connections. Again, it's not a very good idea to include all of those connections here. That's why I created a separate file. Next thing is I'm going to create an array. As you can see, array has three different things. One is the error, number of rows, data. And again, so error, there is a code for error. That, for example, if it is a 0, that means it's a successful error. It is passed. That means your PHP is able to connect to MySQL or any other SQL database. If it is 1, that means there's something wrong with that. Okay. And number of rows, I'll tell you again later. This is very useful feature because like sometimes you want to display in your app that how many total values you have. Suppose you are retrieving only 30 of 100, so it will show you 30 of 100. So this 100 is the total number of rows coming from your database. So it's good idea to include this thing here. Third is data. Data is your actual data. So again, let me go back to that mockup. I have designed my data in such a way that this looks like this. So I will be heavily using these two fields, error and number of rows, and then the data part. This is where the actual data comes in. Okay. So this is my data format is going to look like. Very simple. Okay. Now next thing I want to do, I want to whosoever is accessing this PHP URL, I want to get the action part. And now let me show you one more thing. So if you go back to this backend URL, you can see the action equals to F, and I'll tell you what is the significance of it. So suppose you can use this action to do different kind of things. So in this example, suppose action equals to V, I want to validate or action. So I'm going to write a switch statement here. What it does, if so again, the code is designed that way. If your backend access is asking this from one table, saying, okay, go fetch the data from MNGIC SQL Server and get this data from this one table. So I can write the particular function using this action attributes. So this is the significance of X. So in this case, I'm just going to use say anything action case equals to V. So if case equals to V, then get the fetch data. So what happens if the user don't put any actions there? So in that case, just respond back with fail value saying, you know what, your error, there's something wrong with the PHP or MySQL connections. So that's why it's not able to show you the data. Okay, perfect. Now is the time to write this fetch data. Okay, I created this function. So this is post data. This is how actually it reads the input. So it's whatever is coming from the source, that's how it reads it. That's how the PHP reads it. Again, I'm going to create a blank array, success return. So this success return will go into this data part later on. But let me just show you right now, and let me just initiate it with two blank null variables, say student ID and student name equals to null. Then now let me write in the SQL statement. So here you can write again, so from the backend service, I said, okay, I want to perform a fetch action on my PHP API. It comes here, it says, okay, action equals to V. So now let's go to the fetch action. So now it's going to this function and I am writing this SQL. So that's the flow. Now all it's going to do is going to get the data from this table. Very simple statement. I'm going to execute this SQL. Then again, number of rows. Again, this comes very, very handy. So that's how I'm populating this number of rows. Okay. So let's capture this number of rows into this number of rows variable. Okay. Next thing is, if number of rows is greater than 0, then I'm going to loop over all the object results, and then I'm going to remember this success return blank variable I initiated. So I'm going to take each fields, the column from the database table, and just push it into this array one by one. So see, I have student ID, session ID, roll number, name, father's name, class, and percent, everything. One thing I forgot. So let me, I'm going to put a counter here. So it's going to loop over all this. So it's going to loop over this array and it's going to build all. So what it's going to do is going to take that array and push all the data elements row by row. Perfect. And at the end of this function, all I'm going to do, see that I'm going to assign the successor return to the data. So when the data comes back, it's going to look like this. It will have error, number of rows, and the data portion. This is going to look like error, number of rows, and the data portion. Okay. I'm going to echo JSON. If you include this JSON encode, this is how PHP returns this code. So this is, this is what echo statement is doing, is returning the data in a JSON format. Okay, I'm quickly going to include an else statement here, which will, again, if it will have fail value, it will say, okay, there's something wrong. So again, see, I'm very cleverly using this error code. I'm saying if it is 2, that means there's no data is found. If it is 1, then there's something wrong, and it didn't, no action was found. Okay, so you can control your errors. You can control, that's how you handle the error in PHP, and you want that error to communicate it back to your application, because your application doesn't understand what went wrong. So here you can include as many error code as you want and as many switch function as you want. So basically it's a very simple API, and I'll include all this code to my GitHub repository. If you have any question, I hope you don't have any trouble doing this, but if you have any question, just let me know. But basically that's how you connect your Angular app to your PHP and MySQL code. In my next video, again, I'm going to use the same set of code, but next time I'm going to connect it to a HTTP database, like a MongoDB or Couchbase or CloudEnd, or any other index databases like Firebase. So that's why, so same code is going to work with multiple databases. So stay tuned and please wait for my next tutorial. Thank you very much.